Hi there folks, and welcome to another episode of the Gladiator Fishing Tackle Shack. Today we're going to try and give you the line on the line when we're talking about PE lines. The PE lines I'm talking about today are from a great company called Gosen. Now Gosen have been around for quite some time, back in the 50s, but they started developing PE lines or braided lines in collaboration with another larger fishing tackle company sometime back in the 80s. But the technology has come a long way since then. You can imagine back in the 80s when we first started to see braided lines, there's no other word for it, it was crap and it wasn't much good for anybody. The commercial guys used it because it was quite thick and it didn't affect it the way they cast or work lures and so forth. But PE braid has come a very long way in a very short time. So Gosen have technology far superior to any other company out there, and I can get onto that when we start talking about specific lines later on. You'll understand that a lot better. Now they're one of the few companies that actually have a factory still that remains in Japan. Not many companies do. There's a lot of stuff packaged in Japan, there's a lot of stuff coloured in Japan, but there's not a lot of line that is actually still manufactured in Japan. So let's get back to what is braided line. Well, effectively braided line or PE line is polyethylene, but it's not your normal polyethylene. Normal polyethylene is pretty soft sort of stuff, and when it works in heat or high temperature environments like places like Cairns, Darwin, Broome, Florida Keys in America, Hawaii, places where you've got high temperature, you'll find that normal polyethylene becomes soft, pliable, it loses shape, it distorts, it disfigures, and effectively it doesn't work as a braided line because it just breaks down. It's not a very good material for making fishing lines out of. There's another common misconception that braids are made out of PET, the same stuff, polyethylene, that you get in bottles. Now, PET is a whole different line again. So it's polyethylene tetralate, and this stuff would be terrible to make lines out of. So effectively this stuff's designed to use once and then break down or recycle. We don't want to have that with line. We want our stuff to last a bit longer and to catch multiple fish over a longer time period. So it's definitely not made out of the stuff that our Coke and water comes in, PET. What it is made out of is ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Well, what's the big diff? There's a fair difference between PET, for example, or normal polyethylene, and ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. The main difference between the normal polyethylene and the ultra high molecular weight polyethylene is the molecules that make up the actual fibre. So if you can imagine, this line doesn't start as a strand, it starts as a big fluffy ball of fibres. Now that's extruded and spun into making one strand of yarn, which is then woven or braided to make a braided line. Now those fibres, the difference between a polyethylene standard fibre and an ultra high molecular weight polyethylene fibre is that the molecular chains are very long in ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, and that allows that strand or that material to resist load much better. It doesn't break down as quickly, it's not recyclable, so make sure you throw it in the bin, folks, not in a recycling bin. And it's much stronger over a longer strand. So this stuff is woven or braided into a single strand to allow you to fish with. So that's the difference between your normal polyethylene, PET, and your ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Now there's a couple of companies, or quite a few companies, that make ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, and the two main ones are Dyneema and Spectra. So they're both brands. They're not types of polyethylene. They're brands of polyethylene that different companies make. So the Dyneema is made by, I think it's BSA, and the Spectra is made by Honeywell. But there's a new player in this game, and that's Isonus. So Isonus make a Tiobo fibre, which Gosen have now started using across all of their lines, or the main lines that they've got in their range. Now we'll look at these lines I've got here. These are the main lines that we have available in tackle stores around the country. In Australia, if you're looking at it from overseas, they're still available in most countries overseas, except a couple of these lines are designed just for an export market, so you can't buy them in Japan. I'm sorry, folks. So we'll just quickly look at what we've got here. We've got the Don Pepe line. It's one of the older lines that Gosen have been making. It's a 4-strand, but it's done in very small sizes. Great for casting those ultra light little lures. Anything under 5 grams, this thing casts beautifully in those smaller sizes. Wild jerk is done just for squid fishing, believe it or not. It's got a solid core which makes it sink which is much better for presenting your squid jig, so it actually sinks the right way. It's not, as we know with braid, it does generally float. It's got a specific gravity that's lighter than water, so it does float. And that what it can do from time to time is cause your jig to fall backwards or sideways or not properly back down to the bottom. So the wild jerk's designed specifically as a sinking line for squid jigs. Now you're saying, well, why can't I just use that with any of my other sinking or suspending lures? Well, that's because the PE suspend does just that. So the PE suspend works when you want to present something like that lure. There's a Gangcraft Rest, and that's a suspending lure. Now when I start working that lure pulls down to a distance. Now if I had normal PE and a monofilament leader, that'd start doing that, and the lure would sit all askew and it wouldn't be a good presentation to the fish. What this line has is a similar core to the wild jerk, but it's not quite as heavy, so it doesn't sink rapidly just like the wild jerk does. It suspends naturally in salt and brackish water. So if you do want to present a sinking lure or a suspending lure, suspending PE suspend is the way to go. Now casting is a super soft, super strong, very small diameter line designed specifically for casting. Now it comes in small sizes, but it also comes in sizes where you can still cast big stick baits or big lures with no problems at all. So it's very round, it's a soft, supple line, and it allows for great castability. Now one of my favourite lines that's come out since the cast is the casting hard. What's the advantage of the casting hard? I've got the casting hard on this reel here, and I have it on most of my bait casters because when I cast my line, I like to have my line straight and have a direct point of contact with that lure at all times. Now most braids, what you'll find is that in between turns, it'll sink or not sink, it'll sag or it'll maintain loops, or after you cast, you'll find that you've got loops in your line. The casting hard presents when you cast, it comes out and stays straight. So it's wound a lot tighter, and it allows that line to sit perfectly straight and keep you in contact with your lure at all times. It's super sensitive, great line. The next line we're going to look at is this line here. I have very little words for. It's a casting PE 16 strand. Now there is no company, bar none, on the planet that's been able to manufacture a 16 strand PE successfully other than Gosen. They've done it really, really well. Its breaking strain for its line size is incredible. It's incredibly round because of the amount of strands it has. It's light. It's halfway between soft and hard. It's a brilliant line. And when you look at line technology, they're a long way ahead of everybody else because nobody else has been able to do it. The closest anyone's been able to come is 12 strands, but the 16 strand is an amazingly soft, supple, smooth line, great knot strength, great inline strength, tiny diameter. It's just incredible and a testament to the technology that Gosen now use. Now up from the 16 strand, we've got the jigging 8. Now this stuff's been around in Australia for quite some time, and it's stood the test over all of the other PE lines that have ever come out on the shelf. So the jigging 8 is a really round line. It's wound with a different pitch, so it's a little bit tighter. It's soft, it's supple. It's got a special coating on it just for jigging, so as it doesn't come apart under high speed jigging, or when you leaving big loops in the air with high pitch, it doesn't distort the line. The jigging 8, again, it's available in small sizes from about PE 0.8, I think, all the way through to PE 8, which is 100 pound. It's amazing. And I use it on all my jigging gear, from small gear like this all the way through to my dog fights and all my big heavier reels. I've never ever had a problem with it. Actually, until the casting hard came out, it's all I used to use on my bait casters as well. It's a great line. Now, just to step aside from the PE stuff for a while, because I know there's people out there who like fluorocarbon as a straight through casting. Now the fluorocarbon Reloaded by Gosen is in the smaller sizes, specifically for those targeting bass, brim, those smaller species. It comes in I think it's a 3, 4 and a 6 pound, and it's got a really hard outside core, but the line is really soft and supple, so it's abrasive resistance to the max, and it's just a great sinking, or a great fluorocarbon line that sinks just like all fluorocarbon lines do. So that's the line on the line. If you've got any questions or queries about any of this product, make sure you get over to the Gladiator Fishing Tackle website, gladiatortackle.com.au, and you'll find all the info you need there. Gosen line, folks. Go out, get some. It's great stuff.